There is a collapse that makes no sound. You won't hear it in the streets or see it in the sky. It happens silently, beneath the surface of thought, like a slow erosion of inner architecture. It begins with small cracks, moments when you open your eyes in the morning already tired, when the body is still but the mind never stopped running through the night. You scroll, you read, you react, and for a second it feels like connection. But in truth, something else is happening. A quiet scattering of your own attention. The energy that once moved as one single current now splinters into thousands of directions. It is the fatigue of too many doors open, too many voices speaking at once. You don't rest because the field of your mind no longer holds coherence. It's like living inside a room where all instruments play out of tune. The sound doesn't seem violent, but it never stops, and its persistence slowly replaces clarity with static. This is the invisible fatigue of the modern mind. You may believe it is normal because everyone around you feels the same, restless, reactive, endlessly stimulated. But that's the illusion. Confusion disguised as progress. What you call being informed has turned into being invaded. Every notification claims a piece of your inner rhythm. Every new trend rewires a fragment of your perception. You no longer think, you are being thought. The world outside dictates your inner tempo until you cannot distinguish your own voice from the hum of the collective field. The Hermetists called this vibrational dissonance, when your personal frequency falls out of harmony with the original rhythm of creation. And when dissonance grows, chaos appears, not as punishment, but as a mirror showing that the music of your being has gone off tempo. That sense of emptiness, that inability to focus, is not a flaw. It is the feedback loop of a system trying to recalibrate itself. The pain you feel when you can't find silence is the mind begging to return to its natural order. If you could see energy as the ancients did, you would notice how every thought leaves a trace, every emotion leaves a tone, every choice adds or subtracts from the harmony of your field. What we call life is not a series of events, but an orchestra of frequencies. And in that orchestra, the first Hermetic principle, mentalism, stands as the conductor. The all is mind, the universe is mental. Everything begins there. This is not mysticism. It is structure. Thought is not abstract. It is architecture. Every belief is a blueprint. Every recurring idea a beam that shapes the invisible skeleton of your world. If your internal geometry is distorted by constant distraction, the world you experience will reflect that same distortion. The chaos outside is only the resonance of inner disorder. You don't suffer because life is chaotic. You suffer because you have forgotten that the mind is the builder of order. Imagine your mind as a vast field of mirrors, each one reflecting an aspect of creation. When you allow confusion to dominate, the mirrors fracture, and the image of reality breaks into countless fragments. You then spend years trying to reassemble the picture, not realizing that the act of observation, calm, present, deliberate, is the glue that binds those pieces again. The secret is not to control every thought, but to reclaim authorship, to remember that you can choose what to energize, what to ignore, what to silence. Thought is creative power, but only when it is conscious. The difference between suffering and sovereignty is the same as the difference between noise and music, intention. The hermetist is not someone who escapes the world, but one who learns to play it, note by note, according to universal rhythm. Close your eyes for a moment. Listen without trying to understand. Beneath the noise of thoughts, beneath the hum of the world, there is a pulse. Subtle, constant, eternal. That pulse is not the world's. It is yours. It is the principle of rhythm echoing through your being. Everything flows out and in, day and night, breath and breath, expansion and contraction. The wave never stops. Only your awareness of it does. When you forget to breathe consciously, the rhythm continues unconsciously. And that's when life starts feeling like a tide pulling you instead of a dance you're leading. Reconnection begins the moment you decide to hear again. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold. Exhale for 4. Observe the quiet space that emerges in between. That stillness is not absence. It is alignment. It is the mind remembering its original tempo. The chaos of your life begins to dissolve not because circumstances change, but because the inner current restores its pattern. The same problems still exist, yet they no longer rule you, because they are no longer in resonance with your vibration. To think consciously is to conduct energy instead of being carried by it. You are not here to control the world. You are here to tune it. You do not overcome chaos. You out-vibrate it. You do not silence the mind. You orchestrate it. You do not escape from the storm. You remember you were the wind all along. Maybe no one ever saw what you've been carrying. Maybe you've walked for years, holding questions no one could answer. You didn't find this by accident. Messages like this aren't pushed. They're pulled by the resonance inside you. And if something deep moved you, if this felt more like a memory than information, it means you've always carried the key. We're about to reveal what has always been waiting for you. And from this moment on, there is no return. If you felt something vibrate within you, click like right now. That gesture is your "I'm here," a sign that you too are listening with your soul. And through that one act, other seekers, just like you, may find their way back home. And if you're ready to walk further, touch the subscribe symbol below and join this living temple of conscious creators, rewriting reality from its true source. Beyond this moment of remembrance, the path descends into the labyrinth of noise itself, where the true hijacker of your rhythm hides, and where the second principle, Polaridade, reveals that chaos is only the other face of clarity waiting to be turned. The labyrinth is built out of noise so familiar that you stop noticing it. You wake up inside it every day. Its walls are made of notifications, the glow of the screen, the constant rush to respond before you even understand what's being asked. You don't wander through this maze by walking. You wander by thinking too fast. Every thought echoes against another thought, until there's no stillness left to hear the truth beneath them. The modern world calls this connection. Hermetic philosophy calls it dispersion, the scattering of consciousness. You are not tired because you've done too much. You're tired because you've done nothing with presence. The labyrinth thrives on repetition. It doesn't need to imprison you with pain. It only needs to keep you circling the same emotional corridors, the same frustration disguised as productivity, the same craving for clarity while feeding on distraction. The mind becomes a hall of mirrors, each reflection distorted by hurry. You try to catch one clear image of yourself, but it shifts every time you look, and slowly, something ancient in you starts to close its eyes, not from despair, but from exhaustion. The Hermetist said that the untrained mind left alone begins to feed upon itself. It consumes clarity, digesting it into confusion. This is the invisible architecture of modern chaos. Not violence, not tragedy, just noise, perfectly consistent, perfectly numbing, a silence that never feels silent. Every time you reach for your phone to escape yourself, the labyrinth grows another corridor. Every time you compare, react, perform, the labyrinth rearranges its walls to fit your current fear. The deeper you go, the harder it is to remember there was ever a center. But there is one, and that's why you're here. Because deep down, something in you still remembers rhythm. That pulse before the world began naming things. That moment between inhale and exhale where the entire universe seems to breathe with you. The Hermetists called it the principle of Polaridade, the law that reveals that everything you fear and everything you desire are two faces of the same force. Light and shadow, chaos and clarity, movement and rest. Every vibration, they taught, swings between two poles, and mastery is not escape, it is balance. When you resist one pole, you strengthen it. When you observe both, they begin to harmonize. This is the secret hidden in plain sight. Chaos is not your enemy. It is half of your equilibrium calling for recognition. The same energy that overwhelms you can fuel transformation if it's directed through awareness. When you feel the storm inside, don't fight it. Watch it. Let the pendulum swing, and you'll see that its movement already carries the medicine. The mind collapses only when it forgets that stillness and movement are partners in the same dance. Imagine it now, the pulse that rises and falls beneath everything, the flow that moves your breath, your blood, your thoughts. That rhythm has never left you. You just stopped hearing it. Every argument, every doubt, every ache is a vibration asking to return home. The path is not to silence the noise, but to listen through it. When you do, the labyrinth begins to dissolve, and the mirrors turn transparent. You start to see that behind every shadow, there was only light struggling to reach you. You may think you're watching a video about principles, but the truth is that the principles have been watching you. They are ancient patterns embedded in the structure of consciousness itself, waiting for recognition. You didn't find this message. It found resonance in you. The part of you that's been waiting to remember is finally answering the call. The first map awaits in the pinned comment. The labyrinth doesn't disappear in a single realization. But the moment you start listening, truly listening, it stops moving without you. The moment you see that every polarity hides a doorway, you stop fighting and start transmuting. You are no longer a wanderer inside confusion. You are the one holding the thread. Now the labyrinth gives way to the next initiation, where the principle of rhythm reveals that even chaos obeys a sacred pulse, and that pulse, once remembered, restores your entire inner world. When chaos ceases to be the enemy, rhythm begins to reveal itself again, not as a concept, but as a cellular memory. There is something inside you that has always known, something that pulses, that organizes, that maintains the flow between what is born and what dies. Hermeticism calls this the principle of rhythm. Everything moves, everything alternates, everything breathes. Oscillation is not punishment, it is language. Life does not err by alternating between expansion and retreat. We are the ones who have forgotten how to listen to this movement without resisting it. The modern mind has been trained to fear rhythm. It only wants the crest of the wave, the high, the focus, the productivity. But the universe is not a straight line. It is a tide. And when you try to live only on the crest, inevitably the undertow pulls you back. Mental collapse is not a sign of weakness. It is your vibrational body trying to restore its natural pulse. Rhythm is not the enemy of progress. It is the only way to sustain it without self-destruction. Observe your own body. The heart beats in cadence. The lungs expand and contract. Night follows day. Silence precedes sound. The problem is not chaos. It's the attempt to sustain a single state forever. The mind that tries to remain constantly clear and in control becomes rigid, and what is rigid eventually breaks. The hermetist understands that wisdom is not avoiding extremes, but dancing between them with awareness. When you feel lost, it's not because you left the path. It's because the rhythm changed and you're still trying to walk in the old tempo. Sometimes chaos arrives not to punish, but to shatter the artificial beat you insisted on maintaining. It is nature's invitation. Breathe again. Each time you return to rhythm, the universe reorganizes the symphony. Try it now. Inhale to the count of 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 4. Pause for 4. Repeat. Feel how the entire body aligns itself. This is the simplest and oldest way to restore mental order, to remember the sacred rhythm already pulsing within you. No external technique can replace the reconnection with that inner metronome. Chaos ends when you stop fighting the oscillation. In that moment, clarity emerges, not as thought, but as sound. The mind becomes an orchestra again. The heart marks the tempo, the breath conducts the flow, and attention becomes the maestro. You begin to see that you never needed control, only coherence. Rhythm is proof that the universe is compassionate. Even when you lose yourself, it brings you back through cycles. It is the pulse that leads dawn after every night, the inspiration that returns even after a weary sigh. When you listen, you understand that there is no stagnation, only phases, tides, movements, and suddenly, the mind that was once confused aligns with the universal heartbeat. What Hermeticism calls rhythm, life calls love, the constant movement that never ceases, that embraces all change, that renews everything it touches. When you recognize it, chaos dissolves, not by escape, but by integration. Oscillation becomes symphony. Silence becomes a measure. The mind becomes the instrument. If you're still here, this frequency is yours. Perhaps you felt fragmented for too long, trying to hold the tide still, trying to live always at the peak. But if something inside you now pulses differently, it's the sign that the rhythm has been remembered. Keep going. Let this vibration circulate through your day. Breathe to the rhythm of the world. Walk in the tempo of the universe, and realize all of life is breathing with you. The next portal is no longer about survival. It's about mastery, where sound becomes silence, and silence becomes power. Because the one who masters rhythm is no longer mastered by time. When rhythm becomes remembrance, clarity no longer feels like effort. It feels like breathing. Now the orchestra inside you has found its tempo again. The instruments that once fought for attention begin to respond to one another. Thought listens to emotion. Emotion listens to silence. Silence listens to something older than both, the field beneath all sound. This is the return of coherence. And coherence, in Hermetic language, is creation. Everything that exists flows in cycles. Planets orbit, tides rise and fall, emotions expand and recede, civilizations inhale and exhale through ages of order and collapse. What you experience as instability is simply the universal pulse performing its work. Breakdown, integration, renewal. The modern mind calls it burnout, loss, uncertainty. But to the Hermetist, it is simply the wave returning home. In truth, the chaos never truly leaves. It just changes rhythm. The key is to move with it consciously, without clinging to either crest or depth. When the mind identifies too much with one phase, the rhythm becomes distorted. If you hold on to the high, you resist descent. If you cling to stillness, you resist growth. Mastery is not the denial of oscillation. It is the ability to ride it with grace. This is the practice of the third principle, to let rhythm teach you presence. Every moment invites you to notice its tempo and adjust accordingly. When the world rushes, you slow your breath. When the world grows silent, you listen deeper. When things seem to stop, you stop fighting stillness and discover it as the ground beneath movement. In this understanding, even pain becomes sacred, because rhythm reveals that no state is final. Suffering is the downward swing of the pendulum, necessary for the next ascent. Every loss carries within it the seed of renewal. Every silence conceals the beginning of a new song. You begin to see that life never truly ends, it simply changes form. To live hermetically is to synchronize your consciousness with this cosmic tempo until you no longer fear the fall, because you recognize it as part of the ascent. Now imagine your life as a great symphony. Every relationship, every decision, every thought, an instrument. You have spent years trying to play all of them at once, wondering why the sound was unbearable. But now you begin to conduct. You lift your inner hand not to control but to guide. You trust that each note will find its place if you remain in rhythm. That trust is the difference between exhaustion and peace. The ancient Hermetists called this alignment attunement to the all. It means to move in harmony with the universe's pulse rather than against it. When you reach that attunement, clarity no longer depends on external order. You could stand in the middle of noise and still perceive stillness. You could lose everything and still feel the pulse of abundance within. That is the hidden power of rhythm. It makes you sovereign within motion itself. This is why the masters always seemed calm, not because the world was quiet around them, but because their vibration was steady inside it. They had learned to read time not as a line but as a wave. They didn't rush, because they knew every swing would return. They didn't cling, because they knew no state would last. They didn't panic, because they understood the pulse never stops. They were no longer fighting life, they were dancing with it. And now, that dance is being remembered in you. Every breath reintroduces the tempo of the cosmos. Every pause you take aligns you with the greater rhythm of creation. The same force that moves galaxies moves through your veins. The same pattern that orchestrates oceans orchestrates your thoughts. You are not separate from the song. You are one of its notes. Take a deep breath and listen. That subtle vibration behind everything, the hum that never ceases, that is the all speaking through rhythm. You don't need to believe it. You can feel it. The mind doesn't need to understand it. It only needs to surrender to it. That surrender is the true beginning of mastery. If you've reached this far, you're no longer just watching, you're remembering. When you feel the pulse beneath your thoughts, you enter the frequency of creation itself. Stay here. Protect this rhythm like sacred fire. It's not fragile, but it is subtle. The more you honor it, the more it begins to organize your life. Decisions become simpler. Confusion fades. Synchronicities multiply. Because now your vibration is readable by the universe again. So breathe. Let the next inhale mark a promise that you will no longer force what should flow, nor resist what must move. You are not a victim of the rhythm. You are its expression. The wave was never meant to drown you. It was meant to carry you home. The next chamber opens where rhythm becomes silence and silence becomes wisdom. There we explore the Hermetic truth that when the mind finds its still point, it no longer observes reality, it creates it. When the pulse slows and the air thickens, something sacred begins to rise from beneath thought. It's the quietest of all revelations, the realization that silence is not emptiness, it is intelligence waiting. The moment you stop chasing clarity, it starts to appear. It doesn't arrive with lightning or visions. It arrives like breath, unnoticed, necessary, already within. The Hermetists called this the still point of the pendulum. Between the swing of chaos and the return of order, there is a pause so subtle most people never enter it consciously. Yet that pause is the source of all creation. It's where rhythm becomes awareness, where vibration slows enough for consciousness to see itself. And when that happens, clarity stops being a thing you reach for. It becomes the space you inhabit. Sit with that. The silence that follows a thought isn't absence. It's the mind exhaling. It's the rhythm completing its cycle. The problem isn't that silence is missing. It's that you've been trained to fear it. You fill every gap with sound, every pause with scrolling, every breath with content. You call it stimulation, but it's actually evasion, running from the voice of your own rhythm. The Hermetist does the opposite. He listens into silence until silence begins to answer. This is not meditation. It's communion. The silence that follows noise is the same silence from which the universe first spoke. When you enter it, you don't lose yourself. You rediscover your scale in the cosmic composition. You realize that awareness and vibration are one. That thought is sound slowed into form, and matter is the echo of an ancient note still resonating through eternity. Close your eyes for a moment. Let everything settle. Notice how the body begins to breathe without you forcing it. That's rhythm acting through you. Notice how the mind tries to label the experience, to measure it. That's polarity reasserting itself. Now see how both are part of one dance. Awareness observes rhythm. Rhythm moves awareness. Together, they form the loop that sustains everything. Now imagine this silence expanding outward, from the space between your thoughts to the space between people, between moments, between stars. Everything that exists moves within this ocean of still vibration. The Hermetists called it the all. It isn't a being, but being itself, infinite, intelligent, self-aware through you. When your mind synchronizes with this field, you begin to experience life as correspondence. What you think doesn't merely describe reality, it writes it. That's why the ancients said, as above, so below, as within, so without. Because what happens within the inner stillness echoes through the structure of the universe. Every coherent thought is a ripple in the all, reorganizing energy in ways your eyes can't yet see. The more attuned you become, the faster the reflection returns. What you once called coincidence becomes conversation. The universe stops feeling distant. It starts to respond like a living organism, because it always was one. And in that moment, the Hermetic path stops being a philosophy and becomes a direct experience. You realize the principles were never abstract laws. They were mirrors showing how consciousness operates. Mentalism. The universe is thought. Polaridade. Every thought contains its opposite. Ritmo. Both move in eternal dialogue. To live hermetically is to join that dialogue consciously, to speak with the rhythm of creation itself. This is where the journey turns inward completely. You are no longer trying to fix the noise or master the swing. You are learning to dwell in the center where movement and stillness coexist. That center is not a place, it's a frequency. When you hold it, reality begins to mirror back the same stability. Relationships shift, opportunities appear, energy flows differently. It's not magic, it's correspondence. The world becomes a reflection of your internal coherence. If you're still here, this frequency is yours. You've crossed the midpoint of this initiation, and that means something rare. Most people stop when the mind grows quiet. They can't bear the absence of noise, but you stayed. That alone tells the universe you're ready for coherence. If your thoughts have slowed, if the silence feels almost alive, stay with it. This is where understanding turns into transformation. Let this moment be a pact between you and yourself, that you will not abandon awareness again, that you will carry this rhythm into your breath, your choices, your days. You've already begun the work, simply by staying. If something inside you feels clearer, if even one line echoed deeper than reason, It means you've started remembering who conducts the orchestra. So take a slow breath, and if you're still here, click subscribe, not as a reflex, but as an act of alignment, a quiet declaration that this language of depth, truth, and rhythm is yours. Because if you've heard this far, you are already part of this frequency. When the silence inside you stabilizes, it doesn't isolate you, it connects you. Suddenly, everything moves with a hidden symmetry. The conversations you have, the decisions you make, the paths that appear, all seem to carry the same rhythm you've been cultivating within. It's not coincidence, it's correspondence. The fourth Hermetic principle, the law of correspondence, begins to reveal itself not as theory but as pattern. As above, so below. As within, so without. This principle teaches that the universe mirrors consciousness. Every vibration inside you finds its echo in the outer world. What you hold in mind long enough starts to crystallize in form. You've seen it without realizing. When you wake anxious, the day bends around tension. When you wake clear, things flow. The outer world obeys the inner field because both are reflections of the same intelligence. For centuries, the Hermetists trained themselves not to manipulate, but to harmonize. They knew that control breeds distortion, but correspondence breeds alignment. To live hermetically is to become so coherent that life itself begins to move in resonance with you. You stop chasing outcomes and start adjusting frequencies. You stop demanding results and start refining your inner state. And then, almost quietly, everything changes. Look around. The moment you changed your breathing, your perception shifted. The space around you softened. Even the sound of this voice feels different. That's correspondence in real time. The field around you responds instantly to presence. But to sustain it, you must live as if the universe were listening, because it is. This is the initiation of integration. The moment when philosophy becomes practice, when awareness becomes behavior. The silence you found earlier must now translate into choices. It's not enough to think differently. You must act according to rhythm, polarity, and mind. This is the real alchemy, transmuting awareness into form. Every small action aligned with higher thought becomes a ritual of creation. Start with what you already do. When you speak, speak slowly enough that your words can carry intention. When you walk, walk in cadence with your breath. When you eat, feel the cycle of giving and receiving that sustains you. Each of these is a correspondence between spirit and matter, between the unseen and the manifest. The ordinary becomes sacred the moment you bring awareness to it. Soon you'll notice that what seemed random begins to synchronize. You'll think of someone and they'll appear. You'll need something and it will arrive. That's not coincidence. That's rhythm responding to coherence. The more ordered your mind, the clearer the mirror of reality becomes. You are not bending the universe. You are finally in tune with it. To live this way requires humility, because the moment you try to use these laws for egoic gain, rhythm shifts, polarity reverses, and the field withdraws its harmony. The Hermetists understood that these laws are impersonal. They serve consciousness, not personality. The purpose is not to dominate reality, but to co-create it in balance. When you align your intent with what uplifts, the laws open their gates. When you move against coherence, they close, not as punishment, but as correction. You have reached the point where wisdom must become embodiment. The labyrinth has taught you focus, rhythm has taught you stillness, and now correspondence invites you to live as if everything were sacred, because it is. Every word, every gesture, every silence rearranges worlds. And if you're wondering whether this path is real, notice what you feel right now. The resonance moving in your chest is not imagination, it's verification. The field is responding as you read. That's correspondence. You are not learning this, you are remembering it. If you're still here, this frequency is yours. Stay with it. Don't rush toward the next thing. Let this law settle into the rhythm of your day. Speak it, breathe it, test it in silence. Reality is listening, always. The next threshold is expansion, where the Hermetic laws stop being steps and become a living current, transforming not only your mind, but the world moving through it. When awareness begins to root itself in rhythm, something extraordinary unfolds. Life starts speaking back. You notice patterns forming where there was once randomness, numbers repeating, encounters that feel too precise to be chance, the subtle timing of events aligning with your inner state. It's not that the world has changed, You've changed the way you move through it. The external now vibrates in dialogue with your interior. This is when Hermetic knowledge stops being mystical and becomes mechanical, a living system of consciousness regulating itself through you. You breathe with the cosmos and it breathes back. You realize that the laws you've studied, mentalism, polaridade, ritmo, correspondencia, are not ideas. They're living structures that exist within you, shaping every moment of perception. The hermetist doesn't seek miracles. He is one, because coherence is miraculous in a world built on fragmentation. But there's a test in this phase, the temptation to use alignment as possession. The ego, subtle as smoke, will whisper, "Now that you know how the rhythm works, use it. Use it to control outcomes, to draw what you want, to secure certainty." That's the last delusion, the attempt to own what can only be lived. You don't command the rhythm, you surrender into it. You don't force correspondence, you become worthy of it. You don't manipulate vibration, you embody it. The field knows the difference between desire and devotion. When your actions are born from devotion, the universe opens pathways effortlessly. When they're born from hunger, everything begins to fragment again. The Hermetic path is the path of purity, not moral purity but vibrational clarity. To walk it is to keep the inner space so clean that truth can echo freely within it. You've noticed, haven't you? The more you observe, the quieter you become. Not because you withdraw from life, but because you start hearing its deeper rhythm. There's a still sound beneath every moment, a resonance under every voice, a silence even in laughter. The deeper you go, the more you realize that reality has been waiting for you to slow down enough to hear it. That's the doorway into transformation. Not knowledge, but frequency. Hermeticism was never about collecting information. It was about restoring vibration. Every law, every principle, every symbol was meant to retune the human instrument to the music of creation. And now, you're beginning to play again. You can feel it. The field around you isn't silent anymore. It's listening. It's alive. The same intelligence that moves galaxies now pulses through your breath. The boundaries between thought and event blur. The old separation between me and world dissolves into correspondence. You start to live in rhythm with truth itself. Write what echoed within you. Your insight may be someone's initiation. Don't just observe. Participate. Share the phrase that moved through you like recognition, not as a comment, but as a transmission. Because the algorithm doesn't decide who finds this, resonance does. Your words might be the signal that wakes another mind from static. This is not engagement. It's alchemy. You write, and through you, the field writes back. And if you can feel the pulse steadying again, that quiet coherence between your breath and the words, hold it. We're entering the chamber of expansion now, where thought becomes symbol, and symbol becomes force. Beneath the architecture of thought, symbols begin to move. They are older than language, living patterns that shape the way consciousness imagines itself. You've felt them before. The sun that always rises after collapse, the serpent that devours its own tail, the mirror that reflects infinity within a single gaze. These are not metaphors, they are codes of perception. When the Hermetists spoke of laws, they were describing symbols vibrating through matter, mirrors of divine intelligence translated into movement. In this symbolic dimension, you begin to see that the mind itself is mythic. Your anxiety and your calm, your doubt and your wisdom are characters in the same ancient story. The alchemy of the soul reenacting itself through every heartbeat. What you call me is simply the point where these currents meet. You are not a fixed identity, but a crossroad of archetypes continually transforming each other. The Hermetists called this transmutation, the art of turning one vibration into its opposite, fear into focus, confusion into clarity, reaction into rhythm. The process isn't mystical, it's elemental. Every time you face what you once avoided, polarity inverts and energy ascends. Every time you pause instead of rushing, rhythm restores coherence. Every time you think with awareness, mentalism aligns the field. You don't force change. You become the vessel through which the laws complete their cycle. And that changes everything. Because once you see the laws working through you, life stops being random. The heartbreaks, the delays, the unexpected silences, they are not mistakes. They are calibrations, the cosmos reshaping you to fit your own vibration. It is here that another symbol awakens. The Ouroboros, the serpent swallowing its tail. It teaches that the end and the beginning are one. Every loss contains the seed of its opposite. Every descent hides a hidden ascent. To resist endings is to resist creation itself. The serpent reminds you, devour your own death before it devours you. The moment you embrace the cycle, transformation begins. Now the Hermetic laws are no longer teachings. They are mirrors. Mentalism whispers, you are the architect. Polaridade says, every shadow carries your reflection. Ritmo hums, nothing is lost, everything returns. Correspondencia completes the chorus. The pattern above is the pattern below. When you hear them together, you realize they've been singing your name since before you were born. And in that realization, clarity becomes devotion. You stop seeking meaning and start serving order. You no longer chase vibration, you maintain it. You no longer search for truth. You live so precisely that truth begins to appear wherever you stand. This is the beginning of mastery, the alignment of will with rhythm, of thought with vibration, of self with the all. The old world may still swirl around you loud and fragmented, but within you there is now a pulse steady enough to conduct it. That is what the Hermetists meant by dominion, not control over others, but coherence within self. The one who holds their rhythm in chaos doesn't resist the storm, they command it through stillness. Now take a breath. Feel what happens when the inhale and the exhale merge into one loop. That is the Ouroboros within your lungs, eternity breathing through you. The same pattern repeats in galaxies and atoms in thought. This is correspondence in its purest form, infinity repeating itself through finite gestures. This portal has a sequence. Follow the thread in the pinned comment. Because what begins here continues beyond the screen. You've crossed into a field where the symbols have memory. They recognize those who understand their rhythm. Leave your mark, a single word, a single sentence that names what awakened in you. It doesn't need to be perfect, it only needs to be true. That word becomes vibration, and through it, the field will find you again. The next chamber is the closing initiation, where all symbols converge and the mind that has remembered its rhythm becomes the architect of its own reality. The air feels different here, heavier, slower, alive. The silence you've cultivated has become presence, and presence has become power. The orchestra that once screamed in confusion now waits in stillness, every instrument poised, listening for your cue. You are no longer inside the noise. You are standing at its center. The chaos that once ruled you now follows your rhythm. This is mastery, not control, not suppression, but command through coherence. The Hermetists called this state dominion of the mind. The world around you hasn't stopped moving. It has begun moving with you. You've learned that chaos and clarity are not enemies, that silence is not emptiness, and that rhythm is not repetition. It is consciousness breathing through form. The principles were never external forces. They were mirrors, training you to remember what has always been within. The first principle, mentalism, gave you the key. Reality begins in thought. The second, Polaridade, showed you that every shadow is a reflection of light. The third, rhythm, restored your balance. The fourth, correspondence, taught you that the world is a living mirror. Together they rebuilt the architecture of awareness, an inner temple where clarity and movement coexist. Now the orchestra waits. You raise your hand. The instruments, thought, emotion, breath, word, align. The first note sounds, and it is not separate from you. It is you. This is the return of the maestro, the one who conducts creation through understanding, not control. Every rhythm now obeys the silent pulse of your awareness. You realize that the mind was never your enemy. It was your apprentice. All it ever needed was direction. The stillness that fills you isn't absence. It's potential. It's the silence that the universe uses before every act of creation. And in this silence, a final truth emerges. You were never trying to transform the mind. You were learning to remember that you are the mind, the all, the pulse beneath every heartbeat, the awareness behind every rhythm, the rhythm itself. Outside, the world continues its dance of opposites. Light and shadow rise and fall, order and collapse. But you now see the hidden geometry beneath it all. Everything vibrates in exact correspondence to its purpose. There is no mistake, no accident, only movement. The same motion that creates galaxies moves through your breath, your choices, your thoughts. The maestro is no longer trying to master the song. He is the song. You take one slow breath and let the world reorganize around it. That single act changes the field. The people who meet you feel it before they understand it. The air around you thickens with presence. The rhythm follows you like an echo of recognition. This is how Hermetic power works. Silently, invisibly, through resonance. The world bends not because you demand it, but because you've remembered its tempo. And now, at the end of this initiation, the beginning returns. Like the serpent closing the circle, the same silence that marked the collapse now carries harmony. The same chaos that once fragmented your mind now moves in rhythm beneath your command. The mind, once your labyrinth, has become your instrument. The Hermetists were right. He who understands the rhythm holds the key to mastery. Every breath you take from here is creation. Every thought, a note in the cosmic score. Every moment of awareness, a stroke of the maestro's hand across the fabric of the world. Every video is a portal. The next one continues your path. Carry this silence with you. Conduct your days as you would a sacred symphony. And when the world grows loud again, remember, you have the rhythm now. The all is mind. The universe is mental. And you are both the listener and the sound.